welcome to the Two Long Movies podcast. I'm Cam.
I'm Luke.
And today we are continuing with our scary movie month for the month of October. Today we have a very special guest with a very special movie that they picked, and today it is EJ.
Hello, everybody. Oh my God, the applause.
Yes,
That's so official.
yes.
That's so cute.
Yes.
Hello, I'm EJ.
EJ and I, we were friends.
We're friends.
We're
friends.
We were classmates. I meant to say we were classmates, and then we became friends. And our what was it? Filmcom last year, or my sophomore year, 2 years ago. I forget.
2 years ago.
We had a couple classes together.
Yes,
since
we did.
Then. And man, I really learned a lot from EJ. Before I was thinking about this last night when I was preparing for this. Being in these college classes and having individuals like yourself really opened my eyes to a genre of movies I didn't even know existed, and it's crazy. Like I was watching, I'm like, man, I'll talk about it later. But you know what? EJ, who are you? I can go on forever. Who are you, EJ?
I'm EJ. I'm a grad student here at EIU, just like Brooke last week. I am studying media and critical studies, which is under the communication studies grad program. So I'm working towards my master's degree. Yes. Unlike Brooke, I am not in my second year. I'm in my first year. So I don't have a thesis yet. But rest assured, it will have something to do with horror, probably something to do with feminism or queer studies. Got some stuff I'm thinking about right now, but nothing to confirm yet. So
it's under wraps until it's ready to be presented.
Making my moves in silence.
But yeah, like lasagna.
like lasagna.
No, but when I was the last guest we had, Brooke, EJ, and we're having another guest at the end of the month. He's returning. He's a big horror dork nerd. When I was coming up with ideas for what I wanted to do this month, I really wanted to do specific movies that I wouldn't know and that audience members wouldn't know. And like, man, I want those. I want to do for sure. Cause I'm like, EJ knows like the type of stuff I would never watch. And not that you know, but I just know you watch stuff that I typically would not. And I'm like, man, I want that on here because it could be appealing to a whole audience of people that I don't know, maybe you don't know, stuff you've never heard of.
I've definitely never heard of this one.
Exactly. So I really wanted that. I know you three have a very particular set of movies that you guys love, and I'm so happy that you guys have all lined up to be here. And yeah, I'm really happy to talk about this. I know I'm yapping.
Speaking of this,
yes,
what is the name of the movie, Kate?
That would be great. We're about 3 minutes in, and I have yet to say the name of the movie.
Building suspense.
Yes. Yeah. It is called Frankenhooker, and this is EJ's pick. And EJ, can you please tell us why you chose this?
Yes. Okay, so Frankenhooker is one of my favorite movies. Full disclosure, like I'm a Letterboxd nerd. It's always in my top 4. It is directed by Frank Henenlotter, who will be known to horror genre fans for movies like Basket Case, Brain Damage, Bad Biology. Fun fact about me is I've seen every Frank Henenlotter movie. I've seen every Frank Henenlotter narrative feature. Haven't seen his documentaries yet.
Okay.
It was lower budget, about $2 million. And it's a retelling of Frankenstein with a very sort of feminist but exploitation twist to it.
Okay.
Is that fair to say?
I would say so.
Yeah. And it was fun to watch. It was different. And I'm very happy it was, because I don't usually, should be taught, this probably wouldn't pop up on my feed. I had to go to Tubi, and I had to type in FRA, which is a little too far if I'm looking for any movie. And and it popped up. I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah, I will say, like, my area of interest specifically in horror is like 80s VHS video store horror. That I believe in another life I was like a really great Blockbuster manager. I collect VHS tapes. I have over 100. I don't have any Frank Henenlotter. They're pretty rare. So if you ever see a Frank Henenlotter for me, give me a call.
Do it.
Call her up.
Call EJ.
Call today.
But why do you gravitate more so towards these type of films?
That's something I've thought about a lot because, I mean, you both have seen Frankenhooker now.
Yes.
I would say it is the higher end budget for Frank Henenlotter movies, right?
Okay.
It is, if you watch this and you watch Basket Case, you're like, wow, the effects in Frankenhooker are so visceral. They're so real. Because Basket Case was made for, I believe it was $60,000.
Okay.
Low budget.
Opposed to this 200. No, 2 million.
2 million. Yep. There's something I really love about low budget horror because to me, it's kind of like when you listen to, this is a weird analogy, but it's kind of like when you listen to a song and you can hear a little bit of like the sound in the studio and you can hear people talking and things like that. I like the human touch to my movies.
Okay.
I don't like when I look at a movie and it's so studio and produced that it's like flawless and super realistic. I like to look at something and go, oh, wow, people made this. Like, yeah, it's not perfectly realistic, but it's theatrical and it's fun and it's campy and there's a human touch to it.
Okay.
So I think that's why I like 80s horror especially.
That's a really good articulation with that.
Thank you.
So I assume you don't like La La Land.
You know, I do like La La Land.
Okay.
I like La La Land a lot.
It's a great horror film, isn't it?
Talk about
Not
that one.
horror of interpersonal relationships. Ugh.
But this film stars Patty Mullen,
Amazing.
James Lawrence, Joseph Gonzalez, Jennifer Delora, Charlotte Kemp, and Louise Lasser. We can just hop into our general thoughts. EJ, would you like to start us off?
I would love to start you guys
Let's
off.
get her going.
Let's hear it.
So, general thoughts on Frankenhooker. God, how do you summarize general thoughts on a movie like this?
It's a good question.
For me, Frankenhooker was something when I first heard the title, I think it's a very evocative title, right? Immediately you're like, Frankenhooker. Oh,
Right.
God. What's EJ making us watch? I rewatched it with some friends this week. And like halfway through, I turned to my friend and I said, oh, I feel bad.
No.
I feel bad I made Cam and Luke watch this week. But it really is so itself. It has such a strong personality.
Yeah.
And while it has these like exploitation elements, at the core, it is a very like pro-woman movie, which is definitely kind of a weird thing to say about a movie that has this much sex and nudity and violence towards women specifically. But not even for this podcast. This is just I'm a nerd and I like to read about directors. Frank Henenlotter one time said in an interview that he doesn't like when men come up to him and tell him that they loved Frankenhooker, but he loves when women tell him they love Frankenhooker because it's just, to him, that's the target audience, right? He said women watch it and they get it.
Okay.
He said
Yeah.
if men watch it, he doesn't think that they're watching it for any good reason aside from seeing Patty Mullen's boobs.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, no more I can say about that. But yeah, I totally could understand. Like, oh yeah, I like seeing all the strippers and the hook, you know. So I could
Exactly.
understand that.
But at the same time, it was made by a man. So
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to have that because typically when you get certain movies made from a man and you want to appeal to an audience, it's most times it's so stereotypical and it's like a forced agenda and it doesn't feel natural, and it's like, dude, you're like kind of being weird because you're doing everything a man would do, like the dialogue you're giving. I can't think of any off the top, but I know. Can you? Sorry, I just hit this. I know when
no, I know exactly, because you don't want to be talking over women, right?
Right.
You want to be like, I believe that men can make effective movies about women,
Yes.
but I also think you need to make sure you're listening to women when making them, right?
Yeah. I think. Yeah. I won't go on any further. Luke.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Okay. What are your thoughts on this movie? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm dying to know what you guys thought, because like I
Yeah.
said, I rewatched this with some friends. I was like, oh, I should
So
pick something else.
when I was
great.
when I was told the title of Frankenhooker, I kind of had what you said too. I was like, "What is that?" Like, I have never heard of this.
Yeah.
And so I didn't. I guess I like at first I didn't put two and two together that the word hooker was in the title until I saw the poster,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Holy shit, it's a legitimate hooker!" And
Yeah.
so like I was caught off guard by it, and then watched it, and I think there's parts of it that I really liked, but overall, I find it to be a little subpar, I would say.
Okay. Why is that?
I feel like it really came down to like the actors and some of the story decisions. Because the actors, like at the beginning, I was like, okay, no like familiar faces off the bat for me. That's not an issue. Like there are some people that I don't have to have a name associated with. You could still do a good job. And I was enticed by it because they did like a quick New Jersey accent in like the opening scenes, and it just never showed up again.
Okay.
So I was like, I guess we forgot that we're filming here.
Yeah.
So after that point on, I was just kind of like, okay. And I give it credit for Jeffrey because I like his character a lot. And I can explain that in a little bit because we're just doing brief stuff. But
Okay.
there's that. And then like some of the story decisions watching it. And I know this is already like an unrealistic movie. Like you are making a hooker turn into Frankenstein.
No.
Really?
Where's
That's
the
insane.
realism?
No.
But like, I can excuse certain things, but then there's other things that are grounded inside of the fantastical stuff that I'm like, there's no shot that would have happened or played out that way.
I'm waiting. I'm
Yeah.
to hear what you're gonna say with that part.
Yeah, we'll have a segment for that.
Okay.
Cam, what do you think?
I had fun watching it.
Why did you have fun during the Frankenhooker?
Don't do that. I know exactly what you're gonna do. No.
My bad. But for real,
Yeah. Because I wouldn't watch this typically, and we always hear these jokes about how exaggerated things are and typical lines. I'm like, man, you hear it all day, or I hear it all day about like you've seen a million movies where they're like this. I'm thinking like, I've heard that line, but yeah, I haven't seen that many movies like that. But this is an exact movie where it happens, and it was just something new for me, and it wasn't garbage. And I know it looks crappy. It's on purpose.
Yeah.
But
like AJ said, they've got a, what, 2 million? 2 million?
yeah.
Yep.
With the 200, that's why I said 200,000 on the box office. Yeah, which was, I don't know, their Henenlotters. I don't know his...
Frank Henenlotter.
Yeah.
My boy.
I don't know what his movies typically gross, but
Nothing.
yeah, so...
He typically funds his movies himself.
Okay.
He does guerrilla filmmaking where he'll just run out and film stuff in New York without,
Permits
like
or whatever.
without permits.
I feel like if he makes it by himself, getting 2 million to film something on your own, if you fundraised that all by yourself, that's impressive in itself.
And that's really... Yeah.
Especially if you have like no studio backing behind.
I want to double check that it was 2 million, just because I've said it a couple times now.
I'm looking at it. It says 2.5.
Okay, yeah, I was right. Look at me.
Yeah, it was just really fun to see something new and have it look bad, but like it's fun, And I watch a lot of serious movies. I try to watch a lot of everything. I try to watch everything. Obviously, that's impossible, but I don't try to stick to one thing. But I haven't seen anything like this, and it was just really cool to try something new and it not be bad.
Yeah.
So
Can I pose a question off of that?
yes,
Do you think it adds charm that it's a lesser quality?
a charm.
Yeah, like you look at it and it's like, it's obviously lower quality than like some stuff, but it's not like a bad lower quality. It's like, yeah, this fits where the movie's going.
I think because of the time it was filmed, that's what it is too. It's in the 90s and it's bad.
Yeah, because to me, like some of the like stuff that happens in it, like how I said earlier, with some of it being like unrealistic, like it's bad,
Mhm.
but it's like part of its charm that like I can honestly just straight up forgive it and be like, that's kind of quirky. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Vibing with it.
It's not. Yeah.
If I can pose a question based on Luke's question too, how are
Yes.
you defining quality?
Oh, to me, how do
Both of you, how would you
Yeah,
define
how do I define
quality in
quality?
On
film?
this. Let's see. I would say it kind of comes down to the look of things. Like if you have, I'll use CGI as an example. Like if you have, how we did in The Fly, like in the teleporters, there's that little particle effect as things teleport. And that's pretty like basic stuff. It was early on in CGI's history anyway, so it's not going to be Avatar length full depth. But if you're comparing Avatar and The Fly, Avatar has a better quality, I would say, because you can see everything so much clearer. It doesn't have like a grainy-ish look.
Yeah.
And like you feel more immersed in it, I guess. And so in The Fly, like you see that and it's like, yeah, you can easily tell that's CGI and you don't like suspend your belief for a minute.
Yeah.
But for this film, stuff like that, I give it credit for being like just part of its charm.
Okay. How would I define quality?
Yeah.
Like Luke said, I think of the way it looks, but also I think if you make... What did you just tell me to watch? It's what's inside.
Yes, you should. Gunnar
I already
and I both really like it.
Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Okay.
Isn't it a recent one?
Yeah,
It's on Netflix, yes.
It looks, if it's modern and it has that grainy look, I kind of think that's quality as well, because I know the price. I don't know the price off the top, but I know how expensive film
Oh,
can be, and for you to make a full feature with film, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is. I don't really. That was a good. I don't know. I don't really think of how high quality. I mean, actually, I do, but I guess because I don't watch many low quality movies. I don't have much to compare it to.
Because for me, when it comes to quality, like realism in visual effects when I see visual effects that are hyper realistic, I can appreciate that, right? But it really isn't a deal breaker for me in movies. I love when blood is way too red, you know?
Okay.
I recently watched a movie called Slime City.
Never heard of it.
It's a great movie from the 80s. It's on Tubi. Highly recommend. Maybe that's the next episode.
Slime City.
Slime City. Shout out Slime City.
Yes.
The real ones know. At one point, someone gets like cut in half, right? And their guts fall out, and it's clearly sausages. Clearly. But the commitment to the bit from the actors to look at that and just scream their heads off, be like, oh my God, it's so much fun to me. And that plays into what I was saying at the beginning, right? About like that human element.
Mm-hmm.
I really like to see a movie and it almost feels attainable. Like, obviously, I don't have a $2 million budget, but I'm like, with enough creativity, I could do something like that.
Okay.
I can understand that. I think that's valid.
Yeah. So for me, quality per se, I would consider Frankenhooker to be a high quality film. There's your soundbite. I would consider Frankenhooker to be a high quality film simply because the level of care and effort put into every one of those effects, you know, making all of the models and all of the, you know, just the sets, even though it's guerrilla filmmaking mostly, so it's just finding spots in New York that just look like that. To me, it has such a specific look and so much love and care put into every frame that it is a high quality movie. But I see what you're saying, lower budget, you know.
So you're saying you're basing the quality based off what you can tell, because that I guess with like the average film watcher, they're not thinking about, oh, they probably made these guts by this, and they made this set is bought from these, or just how,
like how the production behind things was.
Yeah, you're thinking about
Yes.
the care behind the producer and the directors and
and like their passion for it.
right. So you're basing that. So that's where you're getting your
Absolutely.
quality from.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. But I think, you know, to what you guys were saying, when you see like a film like Avatar with like really incredible CGI, and you know that there is insane amounts of care and effort being put into that, you know, and it's visible on the screen. I just love when you can tell a movie was made with care and love.
Yeah.
And for all of Frankenhooker's, you know, grimy, slapped together effects,
Yeah.
you know, everyone involved loved this project.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can kind of spin off of that with like into one of my talking points that I wrote down in my notes is like how the like you can tell that it was handmade with a lot of stuff, especially in the practicality of dismembered limbs and like the gore of it.
Oh.
And I really thought that was a strong point of The Fly. And I can say the same about this too. Like those limbs and like how many of them there are, especially in the one scene where all of them blow up.
Yeah.
Like to hand make every single one of those and then create the mannequin models to blow up and then just hope that it was all right. Like I liked that a lot. I think that was pretty neat. And more like on the production side of things, telling it that it was made by hand is that it was on like actual film. Because if you're watching closely enough, you can find cue marks throughout the film,
Yeah.
which really threw me off. Because usually if you're like streaming a movie, the studios will go in and they'll edit it out. So, and the cue marks, for those who don't know, are a thing that appears in the top right of film screens to tell the projectionists that they need to switch film reels to keep everything running smoothly. And normally you don't see those anymore because it's either all digital or if it's on film, they hide it or edit it out somehow. But especially whenever movies are put up on like digital streaming stuff, like this movie was on Peacock and that's where I watched it. And normally like studios, you know, they'd go in, they'd remove that, but they left it in. And I think that's kind of neat. Like on one hand, that's probably just, it's a lesser film. They don't care as about keeping the quality up. But like on the same hand, it's kind of neat to see that, just like a history kind of thingy.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, because to me it goes back to, yeah, like the handmade, someone made this movie. You can see the marks of the production all over it, which is just so cool to me.
Yeah, it's really cool. Luke's fun facts. So how?
I can tell you, I can see the gears in your mind turning on how to talk about this.
No, I just don't know where to start. Like you said, how do you like give a general thought?
I'll give you a jumping off point.
Yeah.
What do you think was the best part of the movie?
Best part.
Starting point for you.
EJ, you can go first.
Because I have one.
All right, EJ, let's hear it.
So my favorite part of the movie is actually the ending, when they bring Jeffrey back to life in a female body. I think that it is one of the most perfect endings I could imagine for a movie like this. Because throughout the movie, I love Jeffrey, for the record. I think Jeffrey Franken is such a hilarious character. But he's been very superficial about women. He has been very misogynistic. To bring him back to life in the body of a woman, in a body that he has been so sexist towards throughout the whole film, feels like the most perfect and comedic revenge possible. And the fact that it's Elizabeth doing it, and then they're both alive together, but now he's stuck as a woman. Really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he came from a pure spot at the beginning to just bring his fiance back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do.
I have a note about this too.
That's why I asked it, because I wanted to know, because he's trying to find these perfect body parts. I don't know if they're perfect for what her parts, or because of just male gay standard.
I will say the setup at the beginning with people criticizing her for her weight, I think was very intentional, right? He's like, I'm going to bring her back in a body, but this time no one's going to talk bad about her for her weight, right?
Right.
So I think there's definitely a level of, like, he's trying to be compassionate, right? He's like, I'll bring you back, but you're going to look,
how I want you to look.
And that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
There's this insane scene when he has all of the sex workers in a hotel room, and he is...
Oh.
The hotel room scene is wild.
He's like rating everyone.
Dude, it's so gross.
He whips out like a ruler, doesn't he? And just starts like measuring like the thighs.
He's measuring the thighs. At one point, someone turns and he just puts a check on one of the ass cheeks. That comes back too. That's a gag that comes back later when Elizabeth is back to life and you see it. It's insane. So he's got a very superficial idea of the female body. And I think it does become less about I can bring Elizabeth back, and more so I can bring Elizabeth back in a body that I find attractive.
Right. What were you going to say?
So the note that I had was spinning off of like Jeffrey as the character, right? Because I would say he's the main character of the film as we follow through. And when he starts out, like you said, EJ, he does just want to bring back Elizabeth, and then slowly gets a little bit more demented and psychotic about it, and starts like, this is the ideal perfect body part for yada yada. And as he goes through that, he like slowly shifts into that darker state, but then has moments where he's like, I think it's in the hotel scene especially, where after they get the super correct, they're like, no, don't use that. You're gonna die. Don't take that. It's gonna hurt you, whatnot. And he has those moments where you see glimmers of good kind of coming out of him. So the note that I had was that I would argue that he's both protagonist and antagonist throughout the film, because he's the one kind of doing the bad stuff, or trying to like remake and kill all these people, whether by accident or on purpose. But he's also the protagonist for having, on a paper surface level, not deeper, a somewhat moral, in his mind, goal to bring back his love.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to like, because I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Luke, because that's something that I feel like comes up a lot in, I don't know how many like movies or books you guys have read, like Mad Scientists as like a subgenre of horror, right? Mad Scientist is a popular subgenre coming from, Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And in almost all those stories, the mad scientist is both the antagonist and the protagonist, right? It's the person who we're following through their journey, but at the same time, they're causing all of the problems because of hubris, There's always the mad scientist who's going to play God, that challenges God with that hubris, and then bad stuff happens, right? So I think that's a really interesting point. I think some people might watch it too and argue, oh, Elizabeth is the villain, right? Because she comes back to life and kills a bunch of people. And To me, she's justified, you know?
It's not a person. Like, I mean, it's not like a real, yeah, I wouldn't say that.
I think it's so interesting, too, the decision to have Elizabeth, when she is brought back, be a little bit of herself. Like, when she comes back, she can recognize Jeffrey, right? There's like a moment. But then it's just trying to reconcile with all of these other women who are all of a sudden a part of her.
And the pieces that are not a part of her.
Yes. Oh, my God. Yeah. There's a whole freezer full of...
Yeah.
Mangled pieces and limbs just there in a weird purple slime.
Yeah.
You love purple slime.
Solution.
Yeah, it's like all doused on them. And Zorro, the pimp too, gets like captured by all of them.
Yeah.
And in the scene shortly before that, I wrote down this quote because I saw it and I had to rewind to write it down because I was crying laughing because it caught me off guard. But there's a moment where Elizabeth wakes up and is like actually Elizabeth, and she sees Zorro first and she's like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "No, the question is, who the hell are you? From what I've been hearing, your ass is mine, and I'm taking possession of it now." And I was like, what in the world is this? Like, it caught me so off guard. But, like, the writing was so funny that I had to write that down.
Too.
Yeah.
Like, my God. The delivery of that line.
Oh, yeah. It was, Zorro's delivery there was golden.
Everything Zorro says makes me laugh because he's so, like, that's not a person. And that's how I feel about so many
Frankenhooker is more of a person than Zorro.
Exactly. That's how I feel about so many of the characters in this movie. It's like, that is not a person. Like, Jeffrey's mom, that's honestly one of my favorite scenes, too. When she's just there and she's listening to him and he's going on his monologue.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially whenever she's just like, "Well, if you don't find somebody else, you're going to be lonely forever." And I'm like, what? My guy, hasn't it been like 3 days?
Yeah, his fiance died like last week.
Yeah, calm down. Give him some time.
What'd you say? Like, do you want maybe a sandwich or something?
Because he goes on this just excellent monologue where he is just exposition dumping for us, where instead of showing us his progression, his descent into madness, they're just telling us. He is telling us. And it's so funny. And he's like, "I'm becoming dangerously amoral. I can't differentiate right from wrong." It's like, okay. And then she goes, "You want a sandwich?"
Like, no regard to what he anything he just said. You might be talking. I think obviously she thinks he's just a weirdo because it's his fiance's birthday at the beginning.
Yeah.
He's over there like cooking up brains and and eyes and.
Yeah, and I have a point later on that.
What's up?
We'll finish what you're talking about.
I don't know if I was gonna go any further. Whatever, you can go.
All right, so the main gripes that I have with the film, I think, are the gripe. I think are like the plot points that are either nonsensical or not followed up on.
Okay.
And like I've said multiple times throughout the podcast history, and I'm sure I'll repeat it more in the future, that story is very important to me. If you mess something up or don't do something certain, like I'm going to be a little unhappy about it. And most of these are probably more in the nitpick category than anything. But what was the brain with the eye? Because they never once said it. And it was there for like the first few minutes of the movie. But after the "do you want a sandwich" conversation, like it just doesn't show back up again. And so I was just totally lost on what it was.
My response to that would be that existed just to initially show us that Jeffrey's a freak, right? They wanted to have him be working on some project that immediately shows us, oh, this is a weird dude who plays with body parts, right?
Okay.
I will say, you're right, it doesn't come back. But he's in a little tank, he's a little sidekick. But that's fair.
I don't know if it's weird to call it like almost like a little cute, like a pet. Like it's just kind of vibing there. Like,
it is.
Yeah.
I almost want
not like cute. Like it's just like a little funny gag kind of cute that's there.
It's just a fun sidekick.
Yeah. He's just vibing. He's a little tank.
Chum-cho.
Flicking his ass back and forth. But yeah, so like there's that part of it. And then the nonsensical things that happen throughout, like the drilling into Jeffrey's head.
Dude, what?
His lobotomies.
Dude.
Yeah. And I think like okay, hold on.
Lobotomy.
Lobotomies.
Before I get into that, like it's not impossible to do like a lobotomy on yourself. but to do it with a drill and then not show blood, like
he
What?
had the dim on the table, so he knew the exact spots of where to.
Got it mapped out.
Yes.
And I know it felt good.
But there's still like, I feel like no spot that you can drill into your skin and not get an ounce of blood.
He knows the spots, man. He had the dummy brain, dummy head on the table. He had the spots picked out. He knew what was going on.
I think that's completely fair, because definitely like there should be blood if you're drilling into your head, right?
I loved when they put it in and like they just show it, the drill just gets close. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so like there's that whole thing. And the one other one that I would say is maybe the most important that I wrote down that is still more in the nitpick territory, because all of them are, frankly.
Yes.
But
Frankenhooker.
oh,
yes.
but
Are there more?
There.
there are more. We're testing things out.
Is there one that goes like, ooh?
We should add that.
Nope. I don't think so. That goes, ooh,
No, not that one.
bad take.
Both of us during
You
Joker
should have
2.
someone on for April Fool's Day and everything they say.
Oh my God, that would be so funny.
We're gonna have.
I'll volunteer as tribute. I'll come.
So I really liked the movie.
We'll talk about Red Rocket, Cam.
Oh, dude, I felt so bad when I like. So
Don't feel
I was the
bad.
only one
It's
that
a very well-made movie.
I was the only one in that class that said they enjoyed that movie, and I'm.
Anyway,
it's
yeah.
something
totally
different.
off topic.
Yeah, back to the topic.
Yeah.
But the one other thing that I think like really drew me out of it, and I was like, "There's no shot that's how that played out," was Jeffrey's drive back with the body parts from Manhattan to New Jersey, because at first I was like, "Okay, they're in trash bags. You could throw it in the back of your seat. Nobody would know unless you like park in like a stoplight."
Mhm.
And then the trunk is open. You see the limbs outside of the bag, and as a person, like, I've been to New York, traffic doesn't move that quick.
Mhm.
There's no shot nobody saw that and was like, what? And New York is full of weird things. Like, there's no getting around that. You could go seeing, like, an inflatable rat on one street and, like,
Yeah.
Optimus Prime looking for photos in Times Square. Like, it varies so heavily. But really? Nothing? And, like, how? I'm so baffled by that. And then it got worse when I realized that Zorro followed him through Manhattan traffic back home. And I'm like, traffic moves slow, I get it. But Jeffrey was like around the street corner before Zorro took off.
I like to picture too that Zorro's just running like,
Well,
you know,
Yeah,
just running
because we
behind.
don't see him in a car at any point. So did he run there? Like,
I bet he did. You saw those muscles.
Honestly, maybe. But like, yeah, those things like are more in the nitpick territory. So I know it's not hugely important, but it's things that I watched it and I was like, there's no shot.
I think the lobotomy thing's valid. That I think that goes into the comedic aspect, which I kind of forget that this is supposed to be a comedy too.
Yeah.
I will say, like, this movie is a comedy and it's very much a parody of the mad scientist genre, right?
Mhm.
So everything that they did to me feels very playing into that, but like twisting it a little bit. So like the mad scientist, typically we would portray the mad scientist as mad just by like going on raving speeches and things like that. But they took it super literal and they're like, he's a mad scientist. How are we going to show that? He gives himself lobotomies.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But very much this movie is a, you know, are you along for the ride type of movie. Like,
Yeah.
once he starts giving himself lobotomies, you kind of have to ask yourself, is this going to be a movie that I mess with or is it not? And I think it's completely valid to not mess with this movie.
I think you said about any movie though.
True.
Like,
Yeah.
it don't-
I don't know
it
if
don't
I'm-
taste.
I don't know if I would say like I did or didn't mess with this movie because like there's parts that I like and there's parts that I don't. But
Can I
I
ask,
agree with that.
was this both of your first Frank Henenlotter?
I believe so for me.
Probably
Incredible. I will say, Frank Henenlotter is one of those guys that you watch one of his movies. My first Frank Henenlotter was Brain Damage, right? I watched it and I was like, what was that? That made no sense at all.
He only made 7 movies.
He's still alive. He
Yeah, I
can
was
still
gonna-
make it.
Oh.
He could still make. I'll send him my money. I'll give him $5.
Frankenhooker 2.
Frankenhooker 2, The Revenge. But he's like, his movies are all. Something I wanted to mention about him that I think is really interesting is he one time said that he doesn't consider himself a maker of horror movies.
Interesting.
He said he's an exploitation director. So for the folks at home who don't know, exploitation is a sort of a genre, but there's like subgenres within exploitation, right? So things like sexploitation, blaxploitation, there's a lot of different things, and horror does sort of tie into the exploitation genre, right? We are drawn to watch these horror movies because it is showing us extreme violence, nudity, things like that. But Henenlotter very much is like, these movies are not intended to be horror. They're not intended for you to watch and get scared or even really disturbed just to see something insane, right?
Okay.
And I think that's really interesting that because this movie has all of the makings of a horror movie, right? And I would still call it a horror movie. That's why I picked it for this. But you can also watch it and be like, it is more so exploitation, right? Because there's a lot of the nudity and even just the nature of showing like the gross grittiness of New York. There's nothing like glossy or shiny about this movie, right?
I wanted to go back on something you said, but it also kind of ties into this. When Elizabeth comes back into when she becomes Frankenhooker, I guess. Like, whenever anyone tries to get with her, they blow up as well. And I think that could kind of tie into that, kind of the aspect for why he gears it towards women, because she's kind of like taking, what's his name? Jeffrey, he had this idea like, oh, I'm going to make this, but like it doesn't even work out for him because anyone who tries to fornicate with her, they just die on the spot.
Exactly.
And that might be kind of a stretch.
No,
but...
I totally see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's definitely, she has this body now that, right, men want it.
No one can have it.
She's not going to let him have it. And she is so powerful, right? Because she's like 7 feet tall with her platform heels, right? And she's got the electricity powers. And it's very much like giving her back consent.
Yeah.
Which is like a deep way of talking about like Frankenhooker. But at the same time, like there's some deep themes in this movie. Like I think it's a goofy, fun time. And it's a movie that I'll just put on with if I'm with people and I'm like, oh, you guys got to see this. We'll watch it and we'll laugh. And it's, but you can, and that's my favorite type of movie, right? Movies that are silly on the surface level. But if you want to, there's stuff there that you can dig into.
Okay. I was going to ask, do you watch these for its deeper meanings or just for a fun time?
Both.
Okay.
I am, like I mentioned, a huge nerd, and that's why I'm in grad school for media and critical studies, because I love overanalyzing movies. Sometimes I just want to put on a movie and laugh at it, Like I mentioned earlier, Slime City. I don't think there's a deeper meaning to that movie. There's people, they eat slime, they start oozing slime from their skin, they become slime zombies. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to read too much into that.
Okay.
Frankenhooker, I think that there's all of the signs that we should read into it, right? It's telling us, it's very intentional with its evocative title, the fact that it does have so much female nudity, right?
Yeah.
But I also think that is intentional because would you say, and I mean, this is kind of a weird question, but would you say you got desensitized to all the nudity after the first half hour?
I would say so for me, I feel like, because going into it, I should have probably known better with the title of Frankenhooker that there was going to be some. And at the start, I was kind of jarred by it. I was like, oh, I didn't think yeah. And then there was a lot of it to where I was just like, oh, another scene.
I don't know. I think
it started to not register with me.
I don't know. I've seen a bunch of movies, so anytime nudity is there, I don't really, unless it's too much, over excessive sex scenes. But this didn't have that. It was just a bunch of stuff. So
I will say though, you're saying that, but the whole scene in the hotel room when he's measuring women, there's extreme close-ups of just one breast.
Yeah.
Showing you every single woman's thigh, things like that. It's just overloading you with these super sexualized images to the point that I think people watching it tend to become desensitized to it, right?
Yeah.
You get to a point where nudity loses all eroticism when you are just bombarded with it, right?
Okay.
So I think that he's being very smart with, it is exploitation, right? There's lots of nudity, lots of sex, but he's being very smart with it by taking something that could be erotic and instead making it honestly a little grotesque, right? A little disturbing.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't think about it that.
And it's okay if you didn't think about Frankenhooker then.
Yeah, I don't think
elopement horror.
Yeah, I don't know. being desensitized, I don't know. I was just talking to a friend about this. Like, I feel like I'm desensitized to a bunch of stuff. Like, every time on the internet, something crazy is there. So I just scroll right past it. I know it's like kind of off topic, but I don't know. I guess so in a way because, you see them I guess so. You see them picking up a bunch of one breast and you just throwing them.
The plate of breasts.
Yeah, and they're just throwing it in there. You're just kind of used to it and like, oh, all right, that's not the right fit. So on to the next one.
And I think when you have been bombarded with all these images of the female body nude, you do get to the point where Elizabeth has been so, the female body has been so sexualized and coveted in this that by the time she comes to life, we are sick of it pretty much.
Yeah.
So she comes to life and she's in, basically like a bra and a tight skirt and high heels, but there is like no eroticism left in her, right?
Yeah, just straight Frankenhooker part.
Yeah, it's all Franken, no hooker. That's the sequel.
All Franken, no hooker.
All Franken, no hooker.
2 Franken, 2 hooker.
Yeah. But are we off to rating? Or do you have more takes?
I'm all out of the notes for this one. And my phone's almost about to die, so I don't really have a choice.
Gotcha.
That's fair. I've got like an hour more stuff to say. So starting... No,
I was about to say, we're already at like 45 minutes.
I want to hear you guys' ratings first. Let's hear what you guys have to say.
All right. I can go.
Cam, I want you to go first.
I am giving this movie I'm thinking a 3.5.
All right.
Nah.
3.5 is pretty okay. It's good.
3.5 or a 3. I think I'm gonna go 3.5. 3.5.
Let's go.
Can you give a brief summary as why?
This is fun. It's new. It's not garbage. It's yes, we'll keep it brief like that. It's fun.
Right. Yeah, for me, I originally rated it lower than, but after talking, I have changed it. And mid-podcast, I went on Letterboxd and changed it.
I saw you do something.
Yeah. I originally gave it a 2.5. I wasn't a huge fan.
Okay.
I was like, all right, I mean, it's not awful. There's parts I really like with the practicality of it. You can tell it was made by human hands. And like you said, Cam, it wasn't garbage.
Was not.
And, stuff with Jeffrey, like you get to see the two sides of the same coin and the same character kind of thing. And I was really vibing with that. But I can't forgive some of like the just quirky humor stuff like I had mentioned, where it's just there's no shot that happened that way.
Yeah.
And most of those are nitpicks, so I can forgive it. But then after talking with you, EJ, and you've like explained some of it more, like I kind of understand it a little bit deeper. So I have changed it to a 3.
Oh.
Let's go.
Yes, changing minds, changing lives. EJ, would you like to give your rating?
This is an easy 5 out of 5 for me.
Wow. Easy 5.
And I've been saying that, right?
Yeah.
This is for me I was having a conversation with a friend the other day about like what are like the 5 movies that if you could make movies would influence you. And Frankenhooker is one of them for me, which sounds ridiculous to say, but it just, like we've said, the human element to it. I also think it's just absurdly funny. I think that no one involved in this movie gave 10%, right? Everyone was giving 100%, even if they're not very good actors.
Yeah.
The people who are not acting very well are still dialed up to 100, right?
Yeah.
There's like an undeniable energy, and you can't beat a movie that's less than 90 minutes.
Can I give a clap?
Yeah, we got to change the soundboard bag.
Yes. Okay. $1.25. Cannot go wrong. And the part you were talking about, everyone's giving 100%. Bro, when Zorro like broke that board when he was waiting on his hooker, his girls, it's just like, oh, the whole board just breaks in the apartment, and then like, whose head was it? He like threw it. Oh yeah,
it hits him in the face.
Yeah. No.
Wait, no, different.
Someone threw a head out the window, and it's just super slow mo, and you're like,
yeah. And then the one that like ends up in the trash can and everybody walks by and it's just, and honestly for New York, you probably
Well, and that's the thing, so much
so weird,
of the issues in this movie can be explained by, well, it's in Jersey,
it's
Jersey.
Not their accents though. I can't explain where those went.
There. Crazy.
Not a Jersey accent in sight.
Jersey boy. But it's been fun, EJ.
It has. This is a good episode.
I'm so glad you were able to come on and talk about this.
Anytime.
This was great. This was fun. I might go and watch. I might just stalk your Letterboxd and see what other weird.
I'll make you a list, Cam.
I would love nothing more.
I'll send you a list. You ready to dive into shot on video horror from like the 90s?
I'm scared. But
oh yeah.
Yes.
Get ready.
Okay. Oh man. All right. This has been fun. Thank you for coming on again.
Thank you.
It's been the Two Dudes Talk Movies podcast. I'm Cam,
I'm Luke.
And I'm EJ.
and we will see you guys in the next one with another guest. He's returning.
The final of the 30 from hell.
Yes. So see you next week. Bye.
Peace.